Welcome to Pitch It To Me Podcast, a show about the subjective past, present, and potential future of Flesh and Blood design. In preparation for the return to the Deathmatch Arena, we will analyze a selection of cards from heavy hitters and see what we can learn from the set's design. You can find us across all socials, such as Bluesky and Instagram, at Pitch It To Me Podcast.
I'm Joel.
I'm Clark.
And I'm Fuzzy. Wait, don't touch that dial. We have a very important announcement regarding our show and an event that we have going on the 26th of July.
Yeah, this Saturday, the Saturday that this comes out, we are going to be doing a live episode to acknowledge our 2-year anniversary, which happened at the beginning of this month. We're going to be doing a live episode of Hot Hosts and Hot Wings. That's what I'm titling it.
Fantastic. We're basically going to see how our stomachs hold up to the blistering hot wings that we have in store. You get to see us suffer through a myriad of different flavors and spice levels. Maybe not Clark, because he's just built different, but Fuzzy and I will be suffering heavily.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I am sourcing different activities to torture the two of you.
Oh.
Which I think is going to be a lot of fun.
I need to get more ideas going, but I'm also looking forward to the opportunity to shoot each other some cool questions.
Yeah.
And
we're also hopefully going to source some questions live.
And as an added bonus, we've also added a live giveaway for original, never done before, Pitch It To Me podcast card sleeves.
Yeah, this is wild because we don't even have these card sleeves.
Yeah, so
no one has these card sleeves. They will be, I don't want to say exclusive because we'll probably surely do them again, but
for a limited time, they will be more rare.
You're getting the first ever copies. Let's put it that way.
They'll be more rare than Cold Foil Heart of Fendels. Think of it that way.
Well, I know that I really want my own. And I wouldn't want to tamper the exclusivity and value of the sleeves we're giving out. Maybe we can put a little special text on the ones that we give out, maybe.
Yeah.
We're still working on it, but you'll still get PITM sleeves.
The final design will be ready by the time we do the giveaway. So be sure to stay tuned to not only the announcement that we do, but also just show up at the episode and see if you can snag yourself either a pair of sleeves or maybe a t-shirt. We got some different things in store, so don't miss it.
Yeah. Next thing to talk about is something that hasn't technically happened yet at the time of recording, but has happened for our audience. This is probably something that will create a lot of the questions that we might be asking come the anniversary episode, which is the keynote speech.
Oh my God, did you hear what happened in the keynote speech?
Holy shit, I can't believe they announced Enter Wild Thing here.
So crazy. I can't wait for that wild thing.
I can't believe they are also doing brand new product that we've never seen before. I can't believe LSS is doing yet another brand new thing that they always do every single time.
Look, I'm surprised that Hero hasn't gotten an armory deck yet. I think it was a long time coming.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And I mean Origins, right?
Mm-hmm.
So true. That's what I always say.
Was that Origins. A question mark or a period? You don't know, and I don't know either. But the keynote speech is it's going to happen. I'm sure it created a lot of interesting buzz that we're going to talk about on that live episode.
And once you're done watching not only that keynote speech, but also this episode, be sure to jump down in the comments or on our Discord server and let us know what you're most excited for in Super Slam.
And what you missed the most from heavy hitters.
Touche.
Yeah. Before we get to the rest of the podcast, I want to give a little update as to how our Crucible format is going. If you're not sure what that is, it's our monthly tournament league that I run for our Patreon supporters. And also, it's a custom format that you can participate in even if you're not in our Patreon. This month is home turf constructed. So that means that all of your cards in your deck have to come from the same set. And so far, we have 2 players that are undefeated in our 2 weeks, and that's Clark and Talon.
Oh, God.
Clark, are you enjoying the format so far?
Yeah, I'm just playing Acilio and going, all right, gone in a flash in 3 instants, time to try to win the game.
I think people have been enjoying it so far. I've gotten a chance to play against a chain deck that was pretty cool. We have 2 more weeks to go. I just wanted to give you guys that update if you haven't been playing, but you're still kind of interested in how Crucible's going. At the time of recording, we have 2 weeks to go. I think we have maybe 1 week by the time this episode comes out. Just wanted to give you guys that update.
But if you guys want the smoke, I'll play whenever. I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
We are open to playing extra games.
Yeah, so hop on our Discord and hit us up.
Yeah. So moving on to this episode, we're talking about heavy hitters, right? This is our pick a card series. This is probably the newest set that we've ever done. We're talking about heavy hitters because we're returning to the Deathmatch Arena and we're returning to draftable Guardian and draftable Brute.
And the subtext is Super Slam. As we go to another set with Brute and Guardian, we're really going to be talking about that, but we're going to use cards from heavy hitters as a vehicle for us to talk about Super Slam.
Well, also still just looking back at heavy hitters. I mean, heavy hitters...
The best set ever.
It was a very, very good set. I think it was the first set where I really felt like, oh, I love Flesh and Blood. Like, this is my set. You know, there was Outsiders, there was Bright Lights, but both of those were kind of stinkers. Like Heavy Hitters. And Heavy Hitters was the start of this, like, new era of Flesh and Blood. Mm-hmm. It started way back then, and it's just been continuing now. We got Marvel Heroes for the very first time in that set. I guess we technically got it in History Pack.
Well, I mean, I think what you're saying is correct. Like, we got it in a draftable set is what you're alluding to.
You were like able to open it at pre-releases and at drafts, and like that felt big, right?
I remember doing a pack trade with someone at pre-release, and they opened a Marvel off of the pack that I gave them, and I look fondly at that memory. We're each going to be in our pitches talking about just a couple cards handpicked by yours truly. Who wants to go first?
You know what? I'm going to go first.
Okay, go for it, Clark.
So the first card I want to talk about, I'm going to start off a little bit negative, but I'm going to build up to more positive elements.
Yay!
So to start off, I want to talk about Cut the Deck. Cut the Deck is a 1-cost warrior attack reaction that blocks 3. It has no power. It's an attack reaction that says target warrior attack gets +3 power. If it's defended by an attack action card, draw a card, then put a card from your hand or arsenal on the bottom of your deck. And it has flavor text.
Ooh.
Flavor text, baby. Got a Death Wish. Cheating Against a Vandravel by Miss Q. So when I look at this card, one piece of text jumps out at me. Joel, do you know what piece of text jumps out at me?
Of course I do, buddy.
What is it?
It's action card.
Not just action card, if this is defended by an action card.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's the full mechanic that we're really looking at here. Mm-hmm. If this is defended by an action card, which is interesting because we had already seen that text show up in the past before this set on the original printing of Centauri Sabers for Kasai. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to turn to you, Joel, because you first started playing with the original Centauri Sellsword, Kasai. Mm. What did you think of this mechanic on the Centauri Sabers?
I thought that it was mostly textless weapons, unless it was against a specific opponent. Like, when I first started playing, a lot of our locals would play, like, brutes and stuff. And ninjas maybe, so like if ninjas were relegated to blocking at a specific point of the game, it would get value, but for the most part, it was just 1 resource for 2 power. I think it really shined in Bolton with the original combo list, where you play 2 to 3 Lumina Ascensions and swing sabers multiple times so that the buff across multiple swings will carry over. So that's pretty cool, but other than that, pretty mid.
Yeah. This is also extremely similar to a card that we saw printed previously in Welcome to Wraith. And so this is why I kind of wanted to start with this card, because ultimately this is a reprint set of Welcome to Wraith, right?
Sure.
We see the return of Guardian, Warrior, and Brute. I think the idea was that this was going to be another introductory set. It was going to be a low complexity set that a lot of new players could come in on. This isn't really something that we talk about in Flesh and Blood and how sets are designed, but it is something that's talked about in other games. Like Magic the Gathering talks about this, where a set is more intended to be an entry point than other sets. And so looking at Heavy Hitters, it's meant to be like another introductory set, a return to that Welcome to Wraith idea. A lot of our friends and a lot of the people who came in at the time also kind of echo similar sentiments of like, man, I really love this really mid-rangey, grindy battle. It's really important what you arsenal, how you carry over value between turns. But if defended by an attack action card, replaces Reprise, which is if this is defended by a card from hand. Now, Reprise was good in Welcome to Wraith because you had access to defense reactions, which allowed you to dodge having to block from hand. And it had good blocking equipment. This set doesn't have those. And as a result, I don't think they were able to print Reprise again. And so they instead printed many of these cards with if defended by an action card. And like Joel said, most of the time, that's just textless. And they end up being worse versions of these older cards, and they see zero play. I can't remember the last time anyone played Cut the Deck. I guess what I'm asking is that a failure of design?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how you compare Cut the Deck and Stroke of Foresight. I'm not sure if you mentioned it by name, Clark, but Stroke of Foresight is the card that sounds exactly like Cut the Deck, except it has Reprised instead of defended by an attack action card. And the other difference is Stroke of Foresight can pump any weapon attack, and Cut the Deck can pump any warrior attack. So the one thing that Cut the Deck can do that they tried to explore in heavy hitters is it can pump warrior attack action cards.
Yeah.
And
which were provided to them through hybrids.
Yeah, like you have these wager cards, right? Lots of the cards in heavy hitters happen to be hybrids, like lots of 3-for-7s, etc. And I think if Warrior in the future had access to better attack action cards, they might return to some of these cards that were in heavy hitters that were meant to be support for attack action cards.
Because they're able to be a little bit more flexible. There is value in them being able to target both weapons and attack action cards.
Warriors right now are still very focused on their weapons, and I don't think that's a problem. But as a side effect of that, cards like Cut the Deck, the ones that kind of would only be good if you're playing lots of attack action cards.
There's an interesting parallel between that and Wizards, right? Where Wizards were this set or this class that was like, only non-attack action cards, only direct arcane damage. And similarly to Wizards, I wonder if Warriors are going to start moving in that direction. I mean, Fang leaned pretty heavily on some good draconic attack action cards in a sort of similar way as to how in the Rosetta designs, the core Wizard gameplay was still very focused around dealing straight arcane damage, but then their talented cards were their attack actions and their base synergies. So I wonder if they're going to start doing other similar things in Warrior design that's going to make some of these cards a little bit more palatable and playable. Maybe not in Super Slam, right? Super Slam doesn't have Warrior in it, but it's an interesting design note that I've seen when looking back at heavy hitters, when before, and my first read was, wow, this card fucking sucks because it's just worse than Reprise.
So true.
Okay, the next card I would like to talk about is once again actually a cycle of cards. It's Lay Down the Law, Colossal Bearing, and Smack to Reality. Oh, there goes Gravity is of course the card that we're missing and we'll get in the Guardian Mastery pack. But this is a cycle of cards that come in as a 3-for-7, 4-for-8, or 5-for-9. They all block 3. And they all have an effect called Tower, which says that if it has 13 or more power, it gets this additional benefit. Lay Down the Law is probably my favorite, which is why I've chosen it, which is all non-equipment cards defending Lay Down the Law have a -1 block. That's really strong.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as a form of evasion, that's a really cool ability. If you come in for 13 and they feel like they have to give their hand to block some of that damage, you're giving -1 to every single one of those blocks, including D-Reacts from Arsenal. Get fucked. Sorry, that's one thing I really hate, right? And it's one thing that Guardian players have like complained about, how good it is to Arsenal a D-React against them. It's one of the reasons why CNC Pummel is so powerful of a turn for them, is because like, yeah, you just park that 0 for 4, so anytime they finally throw an on-hit that matters, you just have free 4 block to throw in front of it. And this says, nope, that's actually just a 3 block. It's still good that they're getting the extra block from Arsenal, but like, it's a really cool effect.
Yeah, yeah. And I like the puzzle you have to solve in order to make it happen.
Yes.
How can I get this thing to 13 power? And it's also cute how the 3 ones that they printed in heavy hitters all come at a different base power. So like the strongest effect is the one where you have to pump it by 6. The like, okay, one where you only have to pump it by 4 to get it to 13. Like that one is debatably worse effect, but
Smack to Reality?
It's a lot more situational based on sideboarding, right?
I guess you're right, but this is interesting to me. All three of these cards are rares, but I could have sworn Smack to Reality was a Majestic.
That's funny.
When I was getting it for my Fang tech. When Fang was really, really popular about a month or two ago, I was like, yeah, let me get some Smack to Realities. How much is that going to cost me? 20 cents? Okay. But you're right that it is a more niche effect. Even if I'd argue it's a more powerful effect. Colossal Bearing, because we talked around it, Colossal Bearing says if it has 13 or more power, on hit, destroy an equipment with -1 block value on it. And so I think another reason why I wanted to bring up these cards is because they all have on hits, which is weird for Guardian. Guardian's not actually based around on hits. We all think they're based around on hits, but they're not. They're based around Crush, which is dealing a threshold of damage. It shows how they're willing to print on hits, provided the Guardian is jumping through another hoop. And I think that's going to be very relevant for Lyeth. Well, I don't think Lyeth is going to be dealing with tower effects because that's just fucking unreasonable. You're already having the base power.
I agree, but if he's playing all these pump auras because the pump from the aura isn't subtracted, then it could be actually kind of reasonable for him to put like a single towering titan onto one of these tower effects. Like that's all you really need is one really big pump, and even if you're Lay Down the Law is only coming in for 3.
You want to know who else only needs one big pump? Literally every other Guardian.
Yeah, but he has 5 cards to do it.
That's true.
Yeah, and he blocks for 1 less on every single one of those cards.
True.
Good thing I wasn't blocking in the first place.
1 or 2, right? It's halved. So any 4 blocks only actually block for 2. And to me, that's really dramatic. So I don't think tower is how Lyeth is going to be playing around with things, but I think it could be interesting to see what hoops they're going to make him jump through so that he can get on hits and force the opponents to block. Because if his numbers are going to be this low, no one's ever going to really want to, or no one's going to have to feel like they have to block him. So he's going to have to get value some other way. I think that's going to be through on hits. So I think we're going to see some interesting Guardian on hits, provided you're jumping through some hoop here. And that made me focus on Lay Down the Law. The final set of cards I'm going to want to talk about are the Windup series. Agile Windup, Mighty Windup, and Vigorous Windup. This is a little bit more telling of how I think they designed heavy hitters. This was probably the peak of complexity that they were looking to do in heavy, which is the fact that they're a basic attack, but the attack has an activated ability that is relevant even when it's in your hand. Normally when cards have an activated ability, they kind of need to be face up seen by both players. This was the first time that a card would have an ability while it's like in your hand, not while it's actively out there doing something, while blocking, while it's face up in arsenal, etc., etc. So to me, this was a big departure in their design, giving an ability that is activatable without the opponent seeing it. It's also interesting in terms of how much flexibility it provides, right? Well, so many people love this card because it can just be a good statted attack, or you can discard it for this additional value. But I think it has some interesting design issues that have restricted it and made it see not as much play. First things first, 2 blocks. So I don't know if you guys remember, but when we did the podcast back during Heavy Hitters, we were like, what the fuck's up with all these 2 blocks?
I still am.
Because Welcome to Wraith was so focused around 3 blocks.
Yeah.
And like when something was 2 block, it's because power was elsewhere on the card. It was like a generic go again attack.
Right. Like Guardian and Warrior are 2 classes that almost always, if you look at their class cards, the number on the bottom right says 3. So when you have a hybrid card that's both a warrior and a guardian, let's take the average. The average of 3 and 3 is still 3, right?
That's what you'd imagine. But yeah, in this case, it was 2. So we saw this pattern and this introduction of more 2 blocks on limited chaff to make sure that limited games were ending and not going to fatigue. This was also the first set where they incorporated the 30 deck minimum and maximum. You had to have 30 cards in deck. This was the first set that did that, which I think everyone can agree is very good for the game.
It's pretty tight, yeah.
For me, it is odd because the flexibility of this card and what it provides and it being able to be in 2 classes is a strength. In limited, it ends up making it such a weakness in Classic Constructed because it has made it have this 2 block on it. I want to note that in the Windup series specifically, it's just useless for half of what classes they're printed for. Like Vigorous Windup is not really used at all because if you're going to discard it to get a Vigor, why wouldn't you just pitch it, right? And it feels weird for that to be a cycle. It feels weird for that to be an effect. Maybe if you just really, really need a Vigor token to get some other effect off.
Synergies.
That was them designing Agile Windup based. Great job. And oh shit, we should probably do one for Vigorous.
And Mighty Windup is still pretty solid in my opinion because you can take an extra card in a class that doesn't have natural go again and guarantee that you're getting value out of it. So you're being efficient in your hand. Mm-hmm. But in the classes that we have them for Mighty Windup, for Vigor, actually for all 3 of these classes, they're oriented around having better numbers than the opponent on every single turn. That is how they win the game. It isn't through having some big spike turn. That's what ninjas do. It's not around comboing at instant speed at the end of the game, like breaking the parity. That's what wizards do. What brutes and guardians and warriors do is that they grind you out with more value in 4 cards than you can do. But these cards, when you activate their ability, you're way shooting down the expected value of the card. If the expected value of a card is 3, this is giving you maybe 1.
Yeah, I think the word to describe these cards is utility. Clark, what does utility mean to you? If you had to put a definition to it.
It's like that tool in your toolbox that you don't need until you need that tool.
Yeah. There for you when you need it. I think whenever you describe something as a utility card, it means that it's not a powerful card. It just gives you something other than numbers, And you were on the money when you said that these are numbers classes. They want numbers on their cards. They don't want utility, But that's what these cards offer. In turn 0, you don't want numbers. You want this other tool, which is banking tokens to do later, When you have all the tempo, you might not need a full grip. You just want to be able to convert. And that's what these cards can do. They don't convert that well, but that you can always be discarded for something else. Or when they're coming at you with Bonds of Agony, you need to empty your hand out real fast. You could just discard them all. And none of those are numbers benefits, but I think it's really interesting that LSS even tapped into these designs. They're hey, cards can already do 3 things. What if they could do a 4th thing? You're not playing, blocking, or pitching it. You're just using this ability to discard it and get something else out of it. And how strong would that be? They're kind of limit testing that idea.
Yeah, and then we saw that design pop up later and later, right? With Haunting Rendition, a block card that had that utility. Shelter in the Storm, again, has that additional utility, which I think are very necessary for block cards where they can't attack, right? They don't have that 3rd thing. So having an instant speed discard effect, I think really does help those cards find their way into more decks. So it was, I think, fascinating design. It was really groundbreaking for LSS, even though ultimately it's a little underwhelming in where they specifically decided to print it. I think if we saw these on some common or rare block cards, we would be responding differently than we are now, talking about them on these attack action cards, which only really see play in Brew. But those are my cards. Those were the cards that when I went back and I looked through heavy hitters, I found their designs interesting. I found the story of them interesting, what they did in heavy, and the sort of implications that they may have for the future in Super Slam. Even though I kind of only really talked about that with the Guardian stuff, I don't really know how the Windup series is going to be relevant. Maybe it'll be good in Lyeth.
Having that extra utility because he stopped playing the numbers game, not without your ability.
Yeah, and maybe we see more Brute Guardian cards in Super Slam. Maybe we see some more hybrids, so it's important to remember, hey, hybrids were a thing in this set. But those are my cards. Tell me what you guys think of Lay Down the Line, the Windup series, Cut the Deck, and the other Defend by an Action cards. But I think that's the end of my pitch. What did you guys select?
Yeah, I can go next for Yellow Pitch. The first card that I wanted to talk about is Cast Bones. I think this is one of the more interesting designs that came out of heavy hitters. partially because of how niche it is. While doing something that's kind of clearly brute coded, you randomly, quote unquote, look at the top 6 cards in your deck, and you might have some agency over the top card. Or maybe if you're a freak who's waited until second cycle to play Cast Bones, then you could like pitch stack, set 6 6s on top of each other.
Whoa, buddy.
Cast Bones is a 0 cost, 3 block, brute non-attack action card. It's red, and it says reveal the top 6 cards of your deck. Create a might token for each card with 6 or more power revealed this way. Put the revealed cards on top of your deck in a random order. If you control 6 or more might tokens, create an agility token. I love how in brute design they like to have these cards that are like random. They have you roll a die, and if you roll a 6, you get like an extra benefit. It's like a siren calling you to do something that's unwise. And Cast Bones gives you an agility token if you quote unquote roll a 6 on your might tokens.
Yeah, in a way.
I also like how in KO, Armed and Dangerous, if you already had a might token from before, you can roll, quote unquote, a 5 or a 6 to get that agility token. And KO is kind of the natural habitat for Cast Bones. KO and Cast Bones work very well together because KO can make it very likely that you see 6 6s on top of your deck. KO can run all 6s if he wants to, old KO, Armed and Dangerous, because he turns his 5s into 6s. So all those blue 5s that you have access to in the brute card pool are actually 6s when you put them in KO, Armed and Dangerous.
Yeah, I guess if I think about Cast Bones and like how many mites do I expect from this card, it's 4, right? Like you need at least 4 for it to be a worthwhile cast.
I think I would agree with that. If you're playing this, giving up tempo and an action point, and you're only getting 3 points back, that's kind of underrated, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's like what some commons do, right? We've seen commons that are, or auras, like Blessing of Savagery did that, where it'll pop and give +3 power to your attack on the next turn. I think that even cost 1, right? So like 0 for 4 at Majestic, that feels about right.
And I know there's some context where it's good to stack up those mites. Like if I arsenal a Command and Conquer, then those might tokens are going to be really fucking clutch, because then I can come in for like 9, 10, 11, 12 on my Command and Conquer off of like a 2-card hand. If I'm giving up tempo, I want to be able to block and still have a good turn. So there are some ways that Cast Bones can be really nice and ways you can build around it. The reason I'm bringing it up here for Red Pitch as we go into Super Slam is any deck that runs a very high frequency of 6s, like we saw KO Armed and Dangerous do, Cast Bones is one of the few misses that you can put in your deck very profitably. Like there were builds of KO that had like Blood Rush Bellow and Cast Bones and like maybe 1 or 2 other cards like Reckless Swing, and those were the only misses in the deck, all the only non-6 power cards.
Which is still like 1/10 of the deck.
That's true. It's a very real amount. And when you're trying to look at 6 cards all in the same time, you really want to have as few misses as possible. Tough Nut is the kind of hero that can lead to some very extreme deck building decisions. The joke that we've heard around is, hey, I'm going to run rock and I'm only going to run blues in my deck.
60 blues rock and not a thought in my head. It is me block, me tap, me swing rock.
That's an extreme deck building choice that probably won't be able to run Cast Bones. But what I think you might be able to do is have some really like yellow blind builds where you run lots of yellows. You might run Tunic so you can have like those 0-card hands, but maybe more often you're running 2 or 3-card hands using really yellow line builds in order to get a toughness token every turn that you activate your hero ability. When you're running lots and lots of 6s like that, Cast Bones might be a choice that you make again. Maybe Cast Bones is one of the very few reds that you run in this sort of list. The other reason why I think it could see play in Tough Nut is because you need to get value out of your cards for Tough Nut. When you have 3 intellect, suddenly you cannot have cards with 3 value and still win the game. Not even really 4 value. You need to be getting 5 or 6 value out of every one of your cards to get on par with what other heroes are doing, because you're 1 card down every turn. I don't know if Cast Bones is going to be very good, but it is 1 card that can give you 6 points of value on a single cast. Assuming you build your deck in a way that will allow you to do that, but 1 card 6 is the kind of value that Tough Nut needs in order to succeed. There is an inherent challenge here because Tough Nut needs to use his hero ability pretty much every turn in order to make up for the fact that he has 3 intellect. I don't know how you're going to use your hero ability and then play this 0 cost, no go again, non-attack action card in a way that's profitable. But maybe if some card like that showed up in the Super Slam spoilers or in the set, then maybe we could see Cast Bones be a turn ender. And if you can solve that problem, then I think Cast Bones could be a very nice addition to the deck. This is all very speculative, But these are the kind of things that I'm going to be looking for when we're going through spoilers and Super Slam.
Yeah, seeing a Majestic that can break parity so comfortably with a single action point is something that Tough Nut's going to have to rely on.
The next card I'm going to talk about is Wild Ride. And spoiler alert, I only picked Brute cards today. Sorry, Guardian players. I've been playing Brute a lot lately. It's all I can think about.
He's so Brute coded. I love it.
Wild Ride is a 2-cost, 6-power Brute attack action card. It does not have a block value, and it says when this attacks, draw a card, then discard a random card. If a card with 6 or more power is discarded this way, this gets go again. It has 6, 5, and 4 power at red, yellow, and blue, and the art's got a guy riding a pig. I think Wild Ride is kind of like the top of the barrel here. Like, I think it's kind of obvious that Wild Ride is a good card. Let's talk about a little bit why. If you're looking for cards that should be in the front of your mind when you're looking at the spoilers and what cards am I probably going to be putting into my Brute deck, I think Wild Ride is kind of a no-brainer.
Really?
Granted that KO Underhanded Cheat probably won't be using this card, I think it makes a lot of sense in Tough Nut. It's also a card that has been run in like Rhinar and KO and Levia relatively consistently since it's been printed. Because it's a Brute staple, I want to talk about why it might be good in Super Slam and why it might not be. Design-wise, I think Wild Ride gave Brute one thing that it needed. This is something that Clark has mentioned on the podcast, like almost literally like last episode, maybe 2 episodes ago in his Arsenal Zone. So I'm drawing from him a little bit here. But it solves one of the problems that Brute had, which is converting their hands efficiently. It is a 2-for-6 go again. It's not a very consistent 2-for-6 go again, but it is a little bit above rate. Brutes kind of need that ability to push numbers. That's kind of what they're supposed to be good at, right? Like aggro.
Well, specifically because of the draw discard, right? Like,
Yeah.
It is good because it remains card neutral in hand when other Brute cards rely on having lots of extra cards in your hand.
Exactly. The downside of it is you kind of have to keep cards in your hand. If you block with 3 cards and this is your only card in hand, you have nothing to pitch and you can't play this. So it's just another non-block that's going to be in your hand for the next turn. So you really need to be able to block with max 2 cards from hand in order for this to be good. You draw 2 Wild Rides in the same hand, you can't really block with any cards in your hand if you want to like continue playing the game. It's kind of extreme that way. Tough Nut is also in an extreme scenario because if he starts blocking with more than 2 cards from hand, he's probably only getting like 9-10 points of value out of his turn. So he can't do much blocking. So that's kind of one way that Wild Ride kind of lines up with it. He already can't block very much. Now maybe his toughness tokens are going to give him an incentive to block. We don't really know what the toughness tokens do yet. But one playline I want to kind of call out is if I pitch a blue to play Wild Ride, I draw and discard at 6. I have 1 resource floating. I could use Tough Nut's ability, hit a yellow or a blue off the top. Now I have 2 or 3 resources, so I could play another 2-cost or even a 3-cost.
Or swing that fucking rock, baby.
Yeah, or swing the rock. I'd have to hit, a yellow or a blue to make that happen. And I think that's relatively reasonable. If you're forming your deck around these 2-costs go again, any go again card is going to make it really easy to swing rock. If you have another 2-cost in your hand lined up, like you build your deck around these 2-costs, you could even hit a red off the top with Tough Nut, which is kind of worst case scenario, but you're still able to follow up with a 2-for-6. 2-costs, especially ones with go again, could be really nice in Tough Nut, depending on how you want to build it.
It's odd because I'm just going in a completely different direction. I feel like I'm evaluating the card pool so much differently. Like if you're talking about building a deck around a yellow-based pitch curve, you're looking at lots of reds, not actually at lots of yellows, because red is 2-for-6. That's where the 2-for-6 rate is. Brute does not have 2-for-6 yellows. Levia has 2-for-6 yellows. Brute does not. Brute has 3-for-6 yellows.
Yeah.
So you're still going to be needing to run lots of blues. Blues means non-6s. That means more misses for Wild Ride. Wild Ride not having a block while toughness almost assuredly has something to do with the value defending or blocking. Also means that you're running non-blocks in a deck where you have to get block value. I do like how you say that you can block with the cards in your hand and still able to throw Wild Ride off of flipping a card off the top. But you're probably running red Wild Rides. That means red cards, you can still flip a red and end up ending your turn not doing anything.
Totally.
But 3 intellect means you're going to have to find ways of getting go again without having to rely on all the cards in your hand. And that is something that Wild Ride does very well because it doesn't have as much of a demand on keeping cards in hand.
Exactly. Like Wild Ride kind of allows you to have smaller hand sizes in a way.
Yeah.
Or allows you to play around when you have more limited hand sizes, and that's what Tough Nut has.
But playing Wild Ride, and I think you'll agree with me, Fuzzy, is at its absolute best when you have 5 cards available to you.
Sure.
And you're looking at a bunch of 6s in hand so that you have the lowest chance of flipping that non-6 off the top and fucking your ability to utilize that go wide in the go again.
I agree. Wild Ride is pretty great when you have large hand sizes. However, with Tough Nut, if you're trying to play Rock, you're playing a different game. You're building your deck on a different axis. You're just looking for any efficient go again cards that you can play to leave yourself with resources floating and then flip a resource card off the top. Now, if you play only blues, you'll always get your resources. But if you're not only playing blues, then you kind of need a way to have 1 or 2 resources floating. And Wild Ride is one of those. Just not a consistent one.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me because I don't think I want to pitch with a card and then play a card before activating Tough Nut. I think I want to be tapping Tough Nut to play my cards.
Well, you could do that too, right? I mean, you wouldn't be able to swing Rock if you tapped Tough Nut to swing Wild Ride. Even then, like, that's not that bad because it's a 2 for 6, worst case scenario. Like, it's not really below rate.
That's kind of what, that was your whole argument of like, if Wild Ride's the last card in your hand, at least Tough Nut can do something with that.
Well, I didn't say that out loud, but it's certainly true.
Yeah. It's just odd because I think we're both evaluating Wild Ride in very similar ways, but while you see all the positives that Wild Ride can have in a Tough Nut styled build, I'm seeing all the negatives and all the pitfalls and all the awkwardness with it. So it's interesting. Wild Ride was such a good choice here. I was like, I feel like we're just going to rehash the same things we've always said about this card. No, there's a lot going on with this card that is different.
I'm going to move on a little bit to KO Underhanded Cheat, or I guess RKO in the PITM verse. Like, I guess that's the name we're going for with them. RKO has a very different deck building restriction where he rewards you for playing low power attacks and he brings them up to 6s. So he's brute designed because he has the word 6 printed on his hero ability, but he does something that's way different from any brute we've seen. Wild Ride rewards you for playing a critical mass of 6 power cards, and RKO rewards you for not doing that. So I think RKO might be the first brute that won't even consider Wild Ride.
Yes.
And I think that's radical in its own way. I think brute design has kind of gotten a little stagnant. You look at a KO list or a Rhinar list, and there's a lot that they have in common. Even Leviathan has like her core brute package. Everybody's just trying to play Blood Rush Bellow and get as much value as they can off Blood Rush Bellow. And I'm not sure if RKO is even going to play Blood Rush Bellow or these go again cards like Wild Ride.
Yeah.
I think that's about all I have for yellow pitch. I think we're going to move on to blue pitch. Joel, what cards have you picked out for us?
So before I tell you my cards, I'm going to keep it a secret. I first want to talk about the dev talk that came out, I think yesterday? Last week, if you're listening to this, but right now, I think yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I want to touch on a couple of comments and why they sort of inspired me to talk about these cards in particular. So there are a couple of comments from the dev talk that sort of inspired me to talk about these cards. One of which was how much the devs seem really happy and also a little afraid with how powerful Brute is this upcoming set, which is something they say all the time. I feel like they never correctly...
Did they say that in Heavy Hitters? Oh, I guess they did, because they were like, KO's probably going to be like the strongest hero out of Heavy Hitters, and then was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't always feel like they accurately evaluate Brute or Warrior, like, ever. So I'm a little, curious about, what's going to come out in the set that makes them say things like that. And I think we can already see this with Pleiades and Lionth, but Guardian is going to be taken in a completely different direction than previously. So I want those two tenets to sort of stick your mind, your cerebellum while I go through my pitch. So the first card is actually 2 cards, so I'm cheating a little bit. It's Bigger Than Big and Big Bop.
I feel like that's kind of on our brand, that we cheat a little bit when we do our picker cards.
I still remember when Joel just straight up picked a Draconic card that was not printed in Dynasty. Or sorry, Uprising.
To be fair, they're all red. Who gives a fuck? So I'll start with Bigger Than Big. Bigger Than Big is a 3-cost, 2-block Guardian action aura that says, at the start of your turn, destroy this. Then, your next Guardian attack this turn gets +5 power, and when this attacks a hero, you may wager a Might token with them. And I think Big Bop just does the same thing, but Vigor token. Mm-hmm. And they're both common, so they start at red for 5, yellow for 4, blue for 3. So you get the idea. These cards suck. They're limited chaff. Were supposedly for Betsy, and then she just never used them in CC because, again, she sucks.
They were pretty good limited chaff.
Sure.
That's true. These were pack one, pick oneable.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We know that we have at least one very aura-centric Guardian, which up until now we have not gotten. We've gotten a lot of aura cards. Like, we've gotten a really good sprinkling of Guardian auras, like Earth Lore Empowerment I'm thinking of, like from the Round the Table product, all the original auras from like Welcome to Wraith and some stuff in Crucible 4 and stuff. Actually, I think almost every supplemental set has had a good Guardian aura in there that just never see any play, unless it's like some weird obscure build. Maybe this is the time where they really hone in on that design space and focus less on the evasion aspect of Guardian, on the debilitating on-hit side of Guardian, just focus on auras and how they amplify the card pool of Guardian.
I totally agree.
With Pleiades coming out, my inspiration for looking back at these cards is how she's going to play with suspense counters. Now, currently, she can only interact with auras that already have suspense counters, and we've obviously done a lot of speculating as to what suspense counters do because they haven't been revealed.
Everybody's speculating. You think?
Yeah.
You think it's actually already out by the time this episode comes out?
Maybe. Can you believe what suspense counters do? OMG.
God knows I can't.
So the reason why I bring up these older auras is because with Pleiades' hero ability, of course, everyone's speculating on what suspense counters will be because they haven't been revealed yet, so that's all we can do.
Unless, of course, the goddamn keynote speech.
So true. Can you believe what they said?
Oh.
So I'm thinking that with her hero ability, she can maybe influence when these auras can pop. So like maybe they straight up say this has no text unless you remove a counter so that you can keep these around and maybe stack multiple auras stacking on the same attack. I don't know. If it has anything to do with auras, I'm sure it's going to be pretty interesting. I also think that this would be an interesting way to augment Lyeth's attacks because obviously all of his attacks are halved in base and rounded up. And this would also be a good way to use larger hands if the connective tissue between Lyeth and Pleiades is these auras that buff attacks.
Yeah. I don't know. People keep saying that's like good in Lyeth.
Whoa. I'm people, so be careful with what you say next, buddy.
You're right. Let me just say this directly to you, Fuzzy. I think it's fucking garbage. Like, the hero ability halves it. You're spending 2 cards and a whole extra turn to make the card normal again. That's bad.
Well, no, if you play a tiny card, if you buff a tiny card, then it's going to be above normal.
Yeah, but this only hits Guardian cards, right? Guardian attacks?
Big Bop does say Guardian attack.
Yeah, like so many of these pump effects target the specific class cards. Both of the revered heroes just seem to go really against the base design of their class.
Who knows? You know, I think there's so much of a set that they ruined for limited that they could add like these bigger auras to make, you know, Lyeth get to parity somehow.
They are reviled for a reason. Maybe that's their thing. Reviled heroes just kind of do fuck all compared to their normal class identity.
And this is my very early pitching predictions, but I feel like Lyeth is going to have multiple ways to turn off his hero ability.
Yeah.
Because there's like no way there's only one card where you're like, okay, I can play it a normal, you know? I just think there's going to be more payoffs in that. You know, if they do end up going down this rabbit hole of using Guardians to buff up their aura game plan, this could be some reprints of like some of the older auras, like in Crucible of War, Everfest, things like that, or even Welcome to Wraith. I think that might be kind of cool.
Now, one thing I do want to mention here, Joel, is that Pleiades' hero ability only allows her to interact with auras with suspense on it. So when you mention bigger than big and seeing reprints of these old auras, do you think she's going to have some mechanic that can give suspense to these auras?
Almost certainly. I feel like if your hero ability is tied specifically around suspense counters, it sort of lends herself to be really bad unless a lot of cards give them. Otherwise, she ends up being like Puffin, but I don't see that happening with the Armory deck. So I have a feeling that there will be a lot of really good auras that maybe get benefits with suspense counters or other cards that just say straight up, give this aura a suspense counter, or I don't know. I think there will be a lot of connected tissue with her hero ability and the rest of her cards. It just doesn't really seem like with the way that they've been pushing heroes that have Armory decks, that it would be this restrictive. Next, I want to move on to my the other card I wanted to talk about, which is Battered, Not Broken, which is part of another cycle in heavy hitters. Battered, Not Broken says, The next time you would be dealt damage this turn, prevent 2 of that damage, and if you do, create a Might token. And it's a Brute Guardian instant that costs 0 and is a red pitch. And it's a cycle of these cards, the other 2 being Slap Happy and Take It on the Chin, where they each generate a token that is shared by the whatever classes are printed on the card. And the reason why I bring this up is because the devs, again, seem very impressed with Brute for some reason. And I don't think it's because Tough Nut is so cute. I think it has to do with KO in some regard. And KO seems like the weakest hero in the set so far, to me personally. And that's because I think KO, RKO, Cheeto, whatever you want to call them, will have the lowest density of 6 power attacks of any Brute to date. Obviously, I mean, this is sort of ground for because we've only seen cards that are lower than 6 base power and its hero ability.
Yeah, we've seen none of the base class cards from Super Slam.
Right. And so I was thinking, like, you have to buff these attacks somehow. Like, the game plan can't just be pay 4 resources to give it +3. That just doesn't make sense. I imagine there might be some way to generate lots of Might tokens for both KO and Lyeth because they both suffer from this like really low base power of attacks.
That's interesting because so far we've seen Guardians making Mights, Brutes making Vigors, and then Pleiades makes the Confidence, Tough Nut makes the Toughness, right? I don't know. It's interesting. I do like that this is a hybrid Guardian card and it can make a Might token, which it does synergize with Lyeth. And Lyeth also makes Might tokens whenever he gets booed. So it's also a prevention card. In our Super Slam speculation episode, we talked about how he's probably going to be leaning on cards that can prevent damage rather than block for damage because it's a flat amount of prevention.
Exactly.
That doesn't get halved at all.
Yeah. If KO's whole game plan is returning things to like a base power of 6, you want those cards to be above their base power. And you can't get it through his hero ability. So there might be some level of cards that generate Might tokens in the main set that both he and Tough Nut will want to use. And speaking of Tough Nut, I was thinking that he would probably want to use cards like Battered Not Broken because he's going to need a lot of multi-purpose token generating cards to offset his intellect penalty. That's why I think they haven't revealed Toughness yet, because it's going to be a large part of his kit that sort of help him have regular games even as the first 3 intellect hero. So cards like Battered Not Broken or Apex Bonebreaker are cards that will not only help Tough Nut increase his damage per turn, but also give KO a way to still have somewhat of the same numbers or have some value proposition compared to the original KO Armed and Dangerous.
I also like how this is a defensive card that Tough Nut can park in Arsenal. It's also a card that you can just sort of play to get out of your hand if you are on this like get a blue swing rock plan and like your only reds are these defensive cards like Sink Below, Fate Foreseen, this. I think that it's good utility. There was a lot of good utility cards in Heavy Hitters, wasn't there?
Yeah,
for sure.
Like cards that did things that let you do other things better, but they themselves did not seem to have a strong effect when you first read them.
Yeah.
I know that you played the Warrior version, the Warrior Garden version of this that made a Vigor token in Bolton for quite a long time, Joel.
Yeah, Slap Happy felt really interesting for Warrior because anything that costs 1 resource is got to be pretty high up there in terms of power or utility. With Bolton, like the best 1 cost in the game is via the Vanguard. So as many times as you can set up playing that, the better. That's why, even though Battered Not Broken is a red non-6 that would like really go against what people are thinking Tough Nut is going to play as, I still think it would be an interesting thing to look at as you're trying to like hedge against this 3 intellect penalty.
I mean, if you're playing Rock, we had some people build the 60 Blues Rock deck. And what they've said is that they have turns where they actually just can't swing Rock because they can't play the cards out of their hands.
Yeah.
And so I actually think that like having some of these cards that convert really, really comfortably or that you even feel comfortable arsenaling, pretty useful in those situations of making sure that your hand can be empty.
Definitely. Like it's a completely different game you're playing to make sure that, number 1, you're making sure that you block the cards at the right time, escaping disruption, escaping like a snatch or whatever, without giving your opponent the option to just say, I'm just going to park this in arsenal because you have one card left in hand. You can't swing your rock now. So you're probably going to be looking at a lot of cards where you say, oh, you're not blocking. I'm just going to discard this mighty Windup, or I'm going to play Battered Not Broken for 0 value, but it's out of my hand now.
Yeah.
I know this one is a little bit of a stretch, but the reason why I brought up Battered Not Broken is because, the only cycle that we've seen so far is the new charm cards printed at the new super rarity category, or returning through the old super rare category. If we've seen one, if they chose to spoil one, surely there's got to be more. And cycles are some of the coolest things that they can do in limited, to me personally. So I'm really excited to see what they can do with these cycle cards when all of these heroes want to play such different game plans from each other.
You know what? I know that you've been talking about this so much in the context of Brute, and I know that I brought up the Lyeth interaction, but I actually think we could definitely see another prevention cycle make its way into the set, specifically as like an important card for Lyeth, but has the additional utility because it makes the tokens for maybe it's going to be a guardian prevention, and like it can make a confidence token, or maybe it'll be a reviled prevention, and it could like also make a might, or also make a vigor.
This set is going to be funky like that. Like this is not going to be a beginner friendly set, and I'm actually kind of excited for it.
Oh yeah.
Yes, actually, it's really cool to see a return to these heroes in a draftable format where it is like, no, this is talented. We're pushing the limits, and we're going to add a lot more complexity.
Yeah.
I just hope that they pull through, because while I feel like they may not, I'd be really, really happy if they did.
Yeah, if this turns out to be a banger, I think everyone's going to be fucking over the moon with, what they accomplished in Super Slam. But with that, I think it's time for old Joel to hang up his cape, hang up his hat, hang up his proverbial apparel, and move on to the Arsenal Zone.
The Arsenal Zone? The Arsenal Zone? What's the goddamn Arsenal Zone?
Yeah, put your hat.
What's in the Arsenal Zone?
Yeah, put your hat back on, Joel. We need you to just tell us what the Arsenal Zone is.
Okay. The Arsenal Zone is the part of the podcast where we talk about a card. It could be a card that we like, a card that we hate, or a card that we like to hate.
But Joel, haven't we been doing that for the last, checks watch, 45 minutes to an hour?
Yes, but this one's not going to be stinky heavy hitters. It's going to be a random card.
Oh, what if I chose a heavy hitters card? Just kidding, I didn't. Let's keep going.
And we're going to start off with a Patreon submission. Now, for those of you who don't know, if you subscribe to our $5 or higher tier, you can submit cards for us to talk about, and that would be in this section right now. So if you feel like you want to hear us three nerds talk about your card, feel free to do so. We keep a bank of everyone that submits. And for today's episode, we have selected, drumroll please, Old Barnacle!
Old Barnacle.
Yar! Or whatever Captain Hornswoggle says.
Yeah. Old Barnacle, really, really great guy. We got to meet him at US Nats this year. It was awesome.
Yeah.
He's also sort of farming the Patreon right now because he signed up, I want to say, like shortly after Nats, and then we picked his card because like, we randomly rolled him, and then we rolled him again today. So you're doing really well, buddy.
Yeah.
His card today was Give No Quarter. Ooh. It's a blue 3-block, 0 cost Pirate Necromancer action that says, the next 2 ally cards with Watery Grave that you play this turn cost 3 resources less to play. And of course it has Go Again. He had this to say about Give No Quarter. Because getting to loot, slam, and swing a whaler off 3 other cards just feels so right.
Oh
and I couldn't disagree more. This card's so fucking good.
I think like it's only good if you're running Whaler, but it is one of the best card to get your Whaler onto the field and then maybe even swing with him the same turn.
I feel like it also makes like Sawbones easier to play and what's his face, Chum.
Yeah, you could like chum into Sawbones. That's pretty good too.
Yeah, like it doesn't cover everything cleanly, but I think it reduces it enough so that like on a really weird hand you could still play 2 allies.
It's secretly really good with Swabby.
Yes, absolutely.
Swabby is way more playable if you prioritize playing around Give No Quarter.
I feel like if you play Give No Quarter, you're probably also using your Mage Master Boots in the same turn, like the first time it happens. That way you can not only play 2 allies, but then also swing your Sawbones for 6 or your Swabby for 7.
Yeah.
Now, Old Barnacle has been a Gravy fanatic since he got spoiled, so it makes sense that he'd want to do a Pirate Necromancer action.
He's been using the Old Barnacle username since way before we even knew we were going to a pirate set.
Before we even had a card titled the Barnacle, he was Old Barnacle.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Old Barnacle, for once again submitting a card. We really appreciate it. And for those of you who didn't hear your card shouted out, don't worry, keep submitting. And if you don't, no worries, we're going to get to all of our cards eventually. But with that being said, who wants to go next for their Arsenal Zone?
Well, look, I think I led off with Red Pitch. I'm going to lead off our Arsenal Zone, or at least our section of our Arsenal Zone.
Cool.
I want to talk about Spike with Inertia. Spike with Inertia is an assassin attack reaction. It's a 1 cost. It blocks for 3. And it says, target assassin attack action card with stealth gains +3, and on hit, give the opponent an inertia token. Inertia, of course, a generic token. It's a generic token because it belongs to multiple classes. It says at the beginning of your end phase, put all cards in hand and an arsenal on the bottom of your deck.
What a card.
It's such an interesting card. I'm talking about Spike with Inertia because I feel like it was a very important card to be printed for assassins and specifically for the stealth build because it focuses around stealth, right? It's a way for them to get the 1 for +3 and an extra effect that we've seen warriors get, and to have that be styled in an assassin-y way with these tokens. I chose Inertia token because it feels like a controlling token that you hate to get at instant speed when you were planning your turn around getting that arsenal.
Yeah, you've already declared your blocks. You already know what's going to go into arsenal this turn, what you're not going to use.
And then right then and there, boom, now you have an Inertia token and you're like, fuck me. Okay. I guess I'll just randomly play this card out for minimal value. And it feels really rough, especially when it's like that power card, right? Now, sometimes it doesn't do anything because the opponent said no blocks, and then you get absolutely fucked by a 5-card Blood Rush hand that just comes in and uses everything. And you're like, well, that Inertia token got me 0 value. But I kind of like that about the disease tokens, that sometimes they don't give you any real value. And I think Inertia is one of the most interesting ones because it can have a pretty big variable level there.
Yeah. Or sometimes even like they still play the card. Like you're not actually bottoming anything off Inertia, but their card, they wanted to arsenal it. Like they're getting less value by playing it now rather than later. But
yeah, it's an interesting card. I like how it gets printed, like how it interacts with Redback Shroud. Very important legendary assassin equipment.
Is it?
It is to me in my heart.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good distinction.
And I really want to see us get a cycle of these for contract cards because I think, God damn it, do they need it? Okay, that's it. That's Spike with Inertia.
Cool. I'm going to go next. Today I'm talking about the Great Library of Solana.
Ooh.
The Great Library of Solana says it's a light action landmark that costs 2, is legendary.
It only costs 2?
Yep.
Jesus.
And at the beginning of each end phase, if a hero has 2 or more cards with yellow color strips in their pitch zone, they gain +1 intellect until end of turn. As an action, discard 2 cards with yellow color strips to destroy Great Library of Solana. Any player may activate this ability with Go Again. The ability has Go Again, not the card itself. And I want to talk about this card because I lost just about my entire Prism deck that I spent the last couple of months building. So now I have nothing to play this library with because Bolton's never going to use it. I need to make sure that I actually didn't lose the Great Library of Solana as well. So yeah, it's just
Joel, you've been hibernating for the last couple of months, not playing Flesh and Blood to build this Prism deck, but then you lost the Prism deck?
Yeah. That's the card I wanted to talk about on a much more somber note. But it's a really cool effect. Even though Prism is the only one that can use it, I'm really excited for the future light heroes that get to use it because hopefully it's like another light warrior in the mix that focus on higher costed cards for better values, or maybe another class that gets added to the light talent. So yeah, just looking forward to the future.
Cool shout.
Yeah.
I think this card can be really annoying when basically your opponent gets 5 intellect for the rest of the game. But hey, gotta give those light heroes something cool. You know, they have a lot of weird cards in their card pool, you know?
So true.
All right, for my Arsenal Zone today, I'm going to get a little bit personal with everyone.
Oh.
I went to the Arcane Games and Events Open Series tournament this last month, and I haven't been able to go to every tournament this year because I was sick for one of them. Like, literally, my body was like, you can't go and get all of your favorite people sick. So I was able to top 8, like, one of the first 2 this year because it was draft, and I'm able to only do well in draft. And every other time, I've kind of gone like 3-3, 4-2, and I haven't been able to rack up very many points this year. It's left me with a weird feeling. I was looking at the points yesterday. Even if I win first place the next AGE next month, which would be the only one left before they do their invitational, I probably still will not get invited to the invitational because even if I get 30 points, a lot of people will probably also get points and like push me out of top 16 because there's a solid like 10 people who would still be above me even if I got like 30 points. I'm pretty far behind compared to that. But it all depends on kind of what your perspective is. I've been thinking a little bit more about it lately, and that's why the card that I've decided to pick today is called Mask of Shifting Perspectives.
Oh, I like that.
I'll read you the card even though it's not about the card at all.
Cool.
Mask of Shifting Perspectives was a Assassin Ninja hybrid equipment headpiece from Outsiders. It blocks for 1. It has blade breaks, so if you block with it, it gets destroyed. And as an attack reaction, you can destroy Mask of Shifting Perspectives. And whenever a dagger hits this turn, you may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. And if you do, draw a card. So you can like use your dagger hits to cycle cards from your hand, which is kind of cool. Doesn't see a lot of play. My shift in perspective today had to do with seeing myself as average. Because I feel like I get an average record at a lot of these AGEs. 3-3, middle of the road, right? Mm-hmm. Like, yes, it's a lot better than some of the other people at the tournament, but it's a lot worse than a lot of the same number of people at the tournament, right? 4-2 is okay. It's not bad. I went at the calling in Nationals, and it was a limited calling, so I was really excited for it. And I went 5-3, which by all accounts is a pretty decent record. A lot of people would love to have a 5-3, right? So I hope I'm not alienating anyone. I'm just kind of talking about my feelings about competitive play lately. I also feel like in other avenues, I kind of do really similar. I am doing Dominion Online League, which is another card game, not a trading card game, but they have online leagues. And I also got a 50-50 record for the entire Dominion League this month.
Wow.
So it's feels like it's kind of been hammered in lately that I'm winning just as much as I'm losing in these competitive events. And then I was like, okay, hold on, Fuzzy. You're not an average fab player. You're an average fab competitor. And that kind of phrase shifted it around for me where like just the fact that I'm going to these tournaments with a bunch of people who are trying their best and trying to succeed, trying to be the best, and I'm able to kind of go toe to toe, win just as much as I'm losing, I think I'm okay being an average competitor because I think that still says a lot about my skill and my ability to come here and play. So reminding myself that I'm not just average at Flesh and Blood, I'm average at competing at Flesh and Blood has been a much better like shift in my perspective, has made me feel a lot better about how I'm doing. So I don't know if that was something that you needed to hear, Mr. or Mrs. Audience, but it's kind of like a phrase that's been on my mind lately. It's been making me feel really well and helping my self-confidence, which if I'm honest, is pretty fragile. So,
especially when it comes to competitions.
That's been my shift in perspective. I brought a copy of Mask of Shifting Perspectives for each of you, and I'm going to sign it right now.
Cool.
You know, Fuzzy's story has reminded me of, there's a famous post that went around on the internet, shows up every so often, of someone's at their gym playing pickup games. Someone's there who apparently played in the NBA. And this guy who like runs the gym is like, man, I can fucking smoke that fool. And so he like challenges him to one-on-one and then gets like 21-0'd.
Yeah.
Like dude gets absolutely fucking wrecked. And that's because the absolute worst players in the NBA are still miles above the average player. Mm-hmm. Like the average person who you would see as being very good at the game, the pros are that extra step up.
I guess they say like comparison is a thief of joy, but like I'm not just necessarily worse than a lot of the other players that are there, right? Like I'm coming there and I'm competing, and that puts me a lot higher above like the people who have never even heard of Flesh and Blood, you know? Like just showing up to this competitive event and doing okay is actually pretty good. And I can go to sleep at night knowing that like I do this hard thing.
There's two things that I want to sort of hammer in is that number one, you as a player, and you figuratively, like those of you listening and also my two podcast hosts in front of me, you will have ebbs and flows of success, and especially in Flesh and Blood where everything is a lot more polarizing in matchup than basically any other card game that exists. And a lot of it is tied to your decision making, and your decision making is tied to your mental energy. There's just a lot more factors that go into competing than just, am I good at this game or am I not good at this game?
Yeah.
And so if one year, like this year, I attended 0 AGEs, and before that, I think I've gone similarly with like 3-3 records or worse every single one. But I still think of myself as a good player, whether that's coping or not. You're just not always going to have a steady line of success. You have to find the circumstances where, okay, I can, maybe do something here. Number 2 is people in Flesh and Blood have a varying degree of responsibility. Like some people just have the perfect setup to spend a lot of time playing Flesh and Blood. At least for myself, I have had basically 0 to invest into Flesh and Blood. And I know, Fuzzy, you had a particularly busy season leading up to not only nationals but also some of the AGEs. So it's like, of course, you might middle out in performance, but that's not anything to do with skill, but more just like circumstances and how much resources you were able to spare on top of doing everything that Fuzzy needs to do. So,
sure.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you for that. That's been my little soapbox today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to it. Here's my signed copy to give to each of you.
Thank you, Fuzzy.
You can run it in your next Outsiders Limited game.
All right, with all that being said, I think that is the end of our podcast.
If you like what you heard and you wanted to hear more of it, feel free to join our Discord, where that's the only place where you can get Super Slam spoilers. We also have the Patreon there in case you wanted to join our next round of Crucible games.
Fuzzy, do you have any idea what we might do for next month?
I do have an idea, but I do not like sharing my ideas. Those are for the public.
Could you just give a little sneak peek for the audience, just a little something to entice them?
No, just one word to describe it.
I will not provide one word of hint.
All right. Well, I guess you're gonna have to subscribe to find out.
I guess Fuzzy just doesn't love you guys.
Wow.
I don't know what to say.
The suspense and the secret comes out of love. Trust me.
I think that's about it. So until next time, guys. Bye.
So long. Pitch It To Me podcast is hosted by Fuzzy Delp, Clark Moore, and Joel Recinos. Our executive producer is Talon Stradley. Logistics coordinator, John Farkas. Music by Dillon Hulse. Logo by Han V. And sound mixing by Christopher Moore. Last but not least, we'd like to thank you, the listener. Thank you for tuning in. Please give us a follow on your favorite social media platform at Pitch It To Me Podcast. I could not.
What am I going to do with a Marvel Olympia? Like,
Whoa.
Rub it in my face. That's what you do, Fuzzy.
Before we knew that,
that happens without me saying anything.
Oh!
You don't need my help to have things rubbed in your face.
Pause. Getting a little saucy on the Pitch It To Me podcast.
No, he's just saying that I bully myself. He doesn't need to do anything.
Oh.
That too. I feel like this is where I would make a joke about aura farming, but I don't know what that means.
Aren't you a tutor?
I haven't been working for 2 months.
Oh, you're out of the loop.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Negative aura.
Oh. I'm learning.
My brain listeners will understand and they'll laugh a little bit.